Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to one of our very important conversations from the Chennai Photo Biennale Edition 3. My name is Shuchi. I'm one of the co-founders of the Chennai Photo Biennale as well as the foundation. And I welcome you all to this evening. Today, we have with us one of our co-curators, Bhooma Padmanabhan, and we also have two of our journal contributors, artists, Paribartana Mohanty and Zishaan A. Latif. Hi, guys. And I would also like to introduce you all to two of our very special partners from Pro Helvetia in Delhi, Sadaf and Chitra. Hi, thank you so much for joining. I must acknowledge that in these very difficult times, when we were trying to reimagine the Biennale, it was with the support of Pro Helvetia that this digital form of the journal kind of was envisaged, and they were one of our first partners to come on board for the third edition. And here we are today with a very interesting format, which we will be talking about very soon. And just for all of you to know, the third edition has been on actually since 9th of December in a hybrid form. Because of the pandemic, we realized and we went through a lot of changes with our curators, two of whom are based in Germany, two of whom are based in India. Bhooma is in Chennai. And it was very difficult for us to even predict how a biennale might happen in these times. So we decided that we will have all artists and all contributors presented on the digital platform, which is chennaifotobiennale.com, which is where all artist showcases are live. We have extended that till the end of February, which is 28th of Feb. Please do check that out. And we have a wonderful journal, which is also on journal.chennaifotobiennale.com. The links are in the chat. You may open them and keep them and check them out later after the conversation today. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a quick glimpse into some of the shows that were on until 6th of Feb. A lot of our physical shows are now closed. We will be continuing with some of our events online. We are also doing a lot of tours for colleges every week. And now that we are on pretty much the last leg of the Biennale, we might do a couple of more tours. So if there's anyone here who knows of certain, they don't have to necessarily be from the visual art programs, they can be from any college or university, please do not hesitate to write to us. Priya, may I request you to maybe just give everybody a little bit of a glimpse of what the Biennale was like? And we are going to launch a student showcase very soon.
Taboo. So Michael Hanna's work, he also paired each image with...
Try it out. I mean, it really looks like... Thank you, Priya. I will now quickly hand over and welcome our co-curator Bhooma to introduce our two artists. And maybe before that, I think Bhooma, before we get into it, if you don't mind, I would like to invite Sadaf to maybe say a few words. I know we've been associated for a while, but maybe Sadaf, if you could say a little bit about this
Sure.
edition, these times, and how things have been.
Yeah, I'll say very little. But no, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for bringing us all together. It's very nice to see so many familiar faces. And of course, I will begin by saying congratulations to the Chennai Photo Biennale team for pulling this edition off in such, challenging circumstances that continue. So yes, bravo to you all. For Pro Helvetia, I mean, we are very happy to be on board this edition. As you said, we were discussing this in March 2020 in Zurich when we were all there for a research trip, and that's where we met all the artists. And we had no idea what was in store for us. And in I think another 2 weeks, the world had shut down. But we kept talking, and I think it was very interesting for us to see how our conversations evolved. It was very interesting and important for us as an institution to see how a partner was responding to the times and how you guys adapted, to this hybrid format, just so something can happen, some programming, the festival takes place. Otherwise, everything has just been postponed. People are waiting for the physical editions to happen. I hope that does happen, but it was really good to see that you didn't wait. You just said, fine, we're going to try and work around it. I know the digital has been a bit exhausting for everyone. We've been doing this online. But I mean, at the same time, as a programmer, I can tell you it's also very convenient to connect people from across the world, like today. To not have to deal with, visa issues, for example. It's just made it so much easier to, invite someone from Switzerland, from Pakistan, from India, to just talk together on the same screen. So yeah, I think for us, I know there's a lot of conversation that is the digital or the physical, and one can't replace the another, but I mean, it's a great alternative, and I think that's how we see it, and that's how we should continue, just as an option. If something can't happen physically, let's just take on the digital. So I think for you, and this journal for us was so important. And as you said, we've been talking about it. It was your idea. I think curatorially speaking as well, the fact that you picked Jan and Nicholas's work, it's so apt. I don't know if Nicholas is here as yet, but he will join later. But even his body of work, when strawberries will grow on trees, it speaks to all of us. It's the same shared anxieties and loneliness and boredom even. I think that just it just makes sense to see how the kind of work you were originally looking at to show if the Biennale had happened physically, and how that changed, and how the curators thought about who to choose then. I think it's very thrilling for us to see it all come together. We're very happy, like I said, to be on board. And I'm excited to actually now hear the artists. You have a great lineup of artists this evening. There's Zishaan and Paribartana and Ahmed, I guess, later with Nicholas. So I will not speak more, but again, congratulations. And this is very exciting for us equally.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. And without much further delay, I will now hand over to Bhooma.
Thank you so much, Ruchi. And thank you, Sadaf. It's so true. I'm just thinking back of our trip to Zurich. It seems like a lifetime ago, because our lives have literally changed in the last 2 years. And the journal has actually given us an outlet, not only in terms of programming, because for us as curators, we always looked at the journal as an extension of the curatorial platform rather than as something that accompanies the curation. So it was very important to us that we have original works, original texts, as well as sort of, works that are sort of important to speak about in these times, to be represented in the journal. So just to sort of give you a very quick overview before I call our first sort of speaker for the evening, Paribartana Mohanty. The journal developed around the time when our curatorial team had to sort of confront the second wave and sort of realize that we couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. We didn't know when we were going to come out of it. And we had to shelve the Biennale plans for the second time. And it was then that we actually thought about, really taking on the idea of an online presentation. And we hadn't fully committed to a hybrid exhibition format, but then, the journal was something that we were comfortable with. We wanted to not only bring texts, not only bring images, but also texts and other kind of sort of multimedia format works with which we could speak to our audience. So in some way, it was to keep the momentum of the Biennale going, but it was also to address the lockdown situation that the world found itself in, yeah, and to really look at the role of images in this world, where it came to us filtered through social media and, say, television news. So in some ways, this period was a period of great introspection for us, and to also think about how we speak of the sudden shift in the lives and practices of artists and photographers who was simultaneously having to isolate and cover some of these stories where they were putting their health and lives at risk. So the idea of the journal was, we sort of broke it down into 2 editions. The first one was titled Through the Glass Darkly, where the artists and scholars were invited to ruminate upon the pandemic and its impact upon the lives of images, the makers of images, and our ways of seeing. The second edition, we simply called it the Maps of Disquiet after our curatorial sort of focus. And it sought to expand the idea of the disquiet aspect of the curatorial, particularly questions around majoritarian impositions, ecological collapse, and the slim line of hope that we saw in the works of artists and thinkers who we thought were finding new forms of resistance. So that's sort of, with a very sort of brief introduction to the curatorial premise of the journal, let me call upon Paribartan. A quick introduction. Paribartan is a Delhi-based storyteller and artist. To me, I've always known him as an artist. He has a background in history of art from the National Museum Institute in Delhi and fine arts from the Dowley College of Arts and Crafts in Bhubaneswar. He's received several awards, fellowships, and residencies, including the 4th VH Award, which is one of the leading awards for media arts in Asia, and the online residency at IBEAM, the Onassis International Residency Program in Athens, the SOMA Summer Program in Mexico, studio residency at the I might be saying it wrong, Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture in New York, visiting fellowship at the South Asia Institute in Harvard, Boston, among other sort of programs. He was one of the curators of the Student Biennale in Kochi in 2016. Paribartana is also part of an artist collective who call themselves Wala, and they organize meetings, gatherings, and public performances, as well as guided tours. He's participated in several shows, as well as done his 2nd solo exhibition. Welcome, Paribartana. While I'd like to sort of call upon you to start talking about the project that we are showing at the journal, I would like you to also present the context within which this work has emerged. So please let me call you to the screen to present your
work. Thank you, Bhooma. You made it still long, but my introduction. Thank you for inviting me for this exhibition, and thank you, the team. I know it's very much challenging at this time to organize, do this kind of event. So I'll start basically so what I thought, to combine the research and the plot of the story itself together. So I'm starting with this note from my diary, if you're able to read it. Noria, a marine fisherman, would say, a tight knot is stronger than the net. A well-stitched net is heavier than the ocean. A tiny fish, which yet free from the net and freely roaming in the ocean, would imagine itself as the most resilient. But in the fish market, the fisherman, the fishing net, and the fish, they all agree that the language is the mightiest. If we are able to grasp the gravity of this paragraph, we would know that this can only come from a place where people constantly fight with the so-called mother and their everyday mundane ritualistic life. I'm talking about a community which we call Noria. Noria, I'm talking in Odia pronunciation. Noria, a Telugu-speaking minority fisherman community that is considered scheduled caste in a majority Odia-speaking state, that is Odisha. Now, we are at the beach in Ganjam, a random beach. But what fascinated me while I was traveling, it's my interaction with Noria and their understanding of this idea of language. What as city dwellers, we have a different perception. So basically, what they say when I was talking to them, and when I'm talking about language, I'm not talking about Telugu or Odia in that context. It's certain kind of approach or behavior these Norias they have, or they have kind of inbuilt into them, and the approach they show towards the nature itself. So these Noria who fight constantly with nature almost every day, the battle of fishing on this unstable surface of the sea, and are facing the surge in recurring tsunamis and cyclones in the recent time, which is like growing regularly. You never hear them cursing the ocean or nature or anything. They are so comfortable. There is certain kind of ease. What I observed from as an outsider. So for me, it was interesting. How do we understand and grasp this form of language? The language which does not divide or separate climate crisis from nature, because that's how our conversation and dialogue has been now, that we differentiate nature and climate crisis separate. That's our tool maybe. But Noria, they don't see that in that divide. It's certain kind of like they tie these two ideas, climate crisis and nature, in a single knot and articulate it as some form of expression or spillover. I was wondering why the image of environment disaster or any form of disaster becomes a spectacle for us, particularly for me, like for us means the artist community, how that gives this spectacle. That's how also for general public in that context, like the way we share images, disaster images or images from like any like natural or man-made disaster on the social media and all. How does that become a spectacle? And always insinuate a sense of premature apocalypse in our collective psyche. This is an image of an empty children's park in Delhi, photographed on a Sunday afternoon. We are in the COVID pandemic lockdown. It was 2020. And it's not an image, don't you think it's an image of apocalypse itself? And where is this sense of spectacle in this? We don't even, my understanding now coming from Fukushima, where I visited and where you could not grasp or experience radiation, but there is constant fear, and that's exactly what happened during COVID. This mundane life and the disaster is like on your head all the time, surrounding you, and now that also coming to a regular life, to politics and all. So this with this value and the idea, this vague value or abstract ideas about language and about apocalypses, how to understand these, I don't know, these opposite or something, but somehow language gives the access to apprehend this idea of apocalypses. I started this journey in July 2021. After the lockdown was over, or it was, I don't remember it was over or not. July was in, there was certain kind of ease, so I could travel. I could fly to Bhubaneswar. Then I started traveling in Odisha. If you can see, this is Odisha on the eastern side of the map of India. And that's the 6 coastal districts, which is touching the Bay of Bengal coast. And the distance is 480 kilometers. And I almost crossed how many, like 80% of that. And so let's go to that journey, how I'll try to illustrate what I went through during the journey and how I saw and how this work also evolved. Let me also, so I started from the south, because this is one of the sites, the work I'm going to show, this work deals with this particular district. I started the journey from Rusikulya River, which is kind of border between Andhra Pradesh and sorry, I'm a little mixing somewhere.
Telangana.
Yeah, but like it's the border, one of the river in the border. So we started from Rusipalya River towards the north, and we kind of stopped here, Kendrapada, and there is one of the sanctuary national park, Bhitarkanika, and we're going to travel more because it was raining heavily. And the story, so now let's go with me to this journey, and on the way I'll tell you this story from Mahabharata, and that's kind of the backbone of this whole travel. And if the audience, I'm talking to the audience, that if you have seen my video, you would know that the song you hear, that comes from different mythologies from Mahabharata, I think. So 36 years have passed since the Kurukshetra war ended. The story I'm going to tell you, it's from Musala Parva. It's in English, it's called the Book of the Clubs. And the chapter describes the demise of Yadava clan. The Yadava clan belongs to the Krishna and Balaram, and the death of Lord Krishna, and the submergence of the city of Dwarka in Prabhasa Sagar. We see young prince or group of princes playing near Prabhasa Sagar while they saw a group of sadhu, sage, on their way to Dwarka. Out of curiosity or pride, maybe, I don't know, and the literature does not describe like what was the thing, but maybe they want to make fun or something. This young Yadava princess thought to play a prank on these sadhus, just to test that how like they are brilliant or something. And one of the prince named Sambo, dressed as a pregnant lady, covering her face, asked to the sadhu, can you please predict how many months it has been, like I'm pregnant, so can you predict it's a boy or girl or something? And somehow the sadhu understood the prank and got furious. The furious sadhu caused the prince Prince Sambo that you'll give birth to an iron mace. Iron mace, basically Musala Parva, what I told, no, the chapter is called Musala. Musala means something like very solid, like a mace, like a gada, जिसको हिंदी में बोलेंगे ना, इस तरह से लोहे का गदा type, iron mace. So this what do you call, sage caused the Sambo that you will give birth, and I think those who are not familiar, Sambo is a man, is a prince. So he would give birth to this iron mace. This there are many readings for this. Why these sadhus got angry, and one of the reading which is very fascinating, and I discovered this reading after making the film from one of my friends, Santosh Sadanand. He's teaching at Ambedkar University. He's a professor, and this reading comes from caste perspective, and I did not have that eye to read this. And he said that these sadhus got angry not because of the prank. They got angry because this Yadava clan, which is the Krishna's clan, they come from the lower caste people performing performing, wearing this sari and becoming pregnant and acting in such acute this performance. Because of that, they got angry, and it was not on the prank itself. And Sambo, the prince, as his fate had, he gave a birth to this iron bolt, like iron mace, big iron mace. So, okay, so now what happens when he gave birth? And sorry, I missed the part of the course. Like when the course was like, you will give birth to this iron mace, and this iron mace is going to destroy your family. So you see the caste angle comes that where these sadhus are cursing that your whole clan, whole dynasty will be perished because of this performance you did. So Krishna immediately, after knowing about this incident, Krishna instructed Bhima. Bhima is one of the prince of the Pandavas. If I don't know if we have international audience or something, or maybe who doesn't know Mahabharata, it would be a little difficult for you to understand, but that's how the narrative goes. Krishna invited Bhima and asked him to take the musala, the iron bolt, and rub it in the Prabhasa Sagar with the salt water, and like completely rub it and vanish it, like completely destroy it. But unfortunately, Bhima tried to do it, but unfortunately there is a small part at the end which was difficult for him to rub. So he could not rub it till the end, and at the end he threw that in the ocean itself, and somehow that remaining part of that iron bolt, which was in the shape of an arrow, the head of the arrow, was eaten by a fish, and the fish carried this iron, the part of that iron mace, and somehow caught by a Nolia fisherman, and that Nolia fisherman sold that iron thing to a tribal king whose name is Jara, and Jara towards the end of the literature killed, they put that in the arrow and killed Krishna. So you see that how the story is plot, like how there is fisherman and the tribal king coming to and killing again the another. So it's a conflict between different castes, different. This is the different the hierarchies and that equation. So now where are we now? So yeah, so the. Okay, so before all this, like the death of Krishna and all, due to Sadhu's course, the public of Dwarka, the city where the whole this drama is set, it's called Dwarka. Maybe you've heard that how Dwarka is drowned. So Dwarka drowned towards the end of the narrative after the death of Krishna. But yeah, so the people of Dwarka, the public of Dwarka started seeing evil things. One of such imagination was a fictional animal called Kokua. Kokua, you know, Kokua, as I said, it's a fictional animal. There are different description in different, like Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavat or Mahabharata, or different Puranas have different description how this Kokua looks like. Some would say like it's dark, black, huge, small, tiny, having multiple limbs, wide tentacles or teeth or something. But the point is, this animal chased people, hunt down people, and nobody saw what is this thing. They were all scared. The people of Dwarka, and the fear was everywhere. They started leaving the city of Dwarka gradually, and there was one point. And you know this kind of, and there are a lot of reference what happens today also in this idea of mass hysteria. If people in Delhi would remember, there was this narrative of Kalabandar. People also get hurt by it, and nobody saw, and there is a constant fear, and it happens in different part of the world in different time. And I don't know, though I have never did any deep research on this, like what is this thing. But that is something was Kokua, this fear lurking in your back of your head, and that's what happening exactly in the contemporary world when we are always scared, what we are eating, what we are wearing, and from all perspective. So the fear of Kokua is everywhere. People started leaving the city, and no one could see the truth because the cloud of fake news was spreading across. All were. I can't express it, the fear. I think we all have our own personal, like our tentacles or our sensors. How do we grasp the idea of fear? So So anyway, the Pandavas, sorry, the Yadava prince with Krishna and Balaram, they thought to chase the Kokua, and by chasing it, they went to the shore of Prabhasagar, the beach of Prabhasagar, which was already contaminated, because when Bhima robbed this iron bolt in the ocean, with the dust of that, the iron, the whole belt, the seashore was contaminated and kind of poisonous. And after a point, when these tired Yadavas, by chasing Kokua, they were tired, so they started drinking this water and they got all intoxicated. And due to that intoxication, they started killing each other, fighting with each other. And during that fight, what happened? There was this grass called Eroka grass. Eroka is also another fictional grass, fictional plant. In the mythology, it's called Eroka or Eroka Bonno. I'm talking about Odia Mahabharata. So we call it Bonno. Bonno is not a grand forest, but forest which is small, like bushes. So this Eroka bushes was everywhere near the coast. And
sorry, Paribartana, I'm just going to interrupt and tell you that we have 10 minutes, so if we can keep a little time to discuss.
Okay, I'm good. I think I have only 3 slides now, so I think I'll do it. Thank you. So what happens, this Eroka grass, due to contaminated water, it became, the leaf of this grass became like sword. So when these intoxicated Yadavas fought with each other, they took this, took these, the swords, the leaf, which has become, because of this contamination and pollution, they started killing each other. And in a bloody, bloodshed, they killed each other. And that's how Yadava clan got to an end. And with that thing, and I told that how Krishna got killed. And for this, like every story has in India or maybe all over the world, particularly the stories which was written or told before, we call Shruti when we hear the stories, not documented stories. There are multiple reading of this, and it always allow to interpret. And the moral is always diluted, not like Panchatantra where you get the moral directly to head. So for me, I heard these stories from my father and my grandmother. I think that's the authentic reading for me. So I don't claim this is the truth. And this story always lurk in my mind, and that's how I see the present. And 5 takeaways for me in the stories was Prabhasagar, the contaminated ocean, and that I saw in Fukushima, the Pacific bed, that I saw in Minamata Bay, and a lot of places like Jamuna River in Delhi. These are all contaminated. So I thought these are metaphors talking. Kokua you saw during COVID, like my mother and a lot of people say COVID fear is like Kokua fear. And Kokua is everywhere, behind you, inside the laptop and everywhere. Eroka forest, which is, for me, was interesting because that's the association I could build with this Kia forest, which gives us perfume. Like Kia flower is used for making perfumes. But Kia has a long fight with Tata company. So I took that as a metaphor in the film. And iron bolt. Iron has an interesting history, the iron metal, that how iron was in the core of the earth. And if you read that, you'll get to know that how earth, from the core of the earth, iron came to the surface and changed the world. And this metal, in fact, the reason why we are here today. And that's why iron is everywhere, in the blood and everywhere. And the drowning city of Dwarka, that was another reason. And I want to finish here, just acknowledging the, I don't know if you're able to read it or not, and acknowledging my friends and all who collaborated in the project. I can stop it here, but if I have 2 minutes, can I share again the sound? It may, Bhooma,
The
Can you
song?
hear?
Yes, yes, you can. You may.
So
And then I
I'm
think we'll take
sharing
2
with
questions
you.
after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Question we are having at the end or in between?
I thought we could go with yours and then call upon Zishaan, because we have half an hour
Okay.
set aside for everyone
Okay.
separately.
So can you hear the sound? Can you hear it, Bhooma?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, we can.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Paribartan. It's actually lovely to see that the work is evolving still. It's come some way ahead from even when we last spoke and sort of decided on the project. We've already messaged. If you have any questions for Paribartan, please put it in the Q&A section below. I just wanted to sort of lead with 1 or 2 sort of prompts. One is the sort of the coming together of language and the idea of the unseen, and something that language as being something that's capable of comprehending or making visible this fear. And I think that's something that in terms of COVID, we have been more sort of aware of, what it means to be given that kind of information. Like, what is something called? Why is this particular strain different from another strain? Give each one a name. And this idea of language is something that is sort of very malleable. It's not this sort of given. I mean, unfortunately, it is becoming more and more concrete now. But when you were talking about language, it's also about this sort of malleability of language and how even a misinterpretation leads to some other sort of analogy. And I think that's a very interesting way to sort of artistically engage with the question of the environment and how people understand the environment, something that's not seen. How can you give us an idea as to how you sort of went about producing the work? Because you actually worked with 2 singers, 2 performers to do this piece, and what kind of a collaboration was that? Because that's a very sort of arresting visual of the 2 of them in that hazmat suits and singing across these various landscapes. So just to give us an idea.
Yeah, language is yeah, it's very complex, and at this moment when we see fake news and this multiple idea of reading what deluge and a lot of philosopher talks, that that romanticism with language has kind of evaporated or like some kind of I don't know, destroyed this multiple reading because of this flooding of information. You were talking about you asked about the collaboration. So I not only collaborated with these 2 folk singers, Daskathia's singers. There are also in the project other artists like visual artists, architect and all. And particularly there are a group of young artists I engage in Odisha. So, and you are familiar with my practice. I always work with everything, and that makes some way artistic practice easier. Because you share certain kind of friendship, and there is not, you are not overwhelmed by the process of collaboration, like paying everyone but again, this is also another complex area about saying that you have right to exploit everyone in that sense, but it gives certain kind of a liberty. So basically I developed a process methodology. The 3 methodology I had. One is to talk to the people who are engaged in the social sector. Like one of the character you will see in the film was an engineer, electrical engineer. Another is Sectarian from Chennai. He's an architect and a visual artist. So I invited him as a guest artist to do his project. Then I started documenting him. just randomly documenting him. So I gave him a small budget for that, where he could make his project, and I documented and made that document as part of my work. With the folk dancer, it went like this, that, they have, if you go to the discourse of the Daskathia song, there are books, there are songs which they regularly sing. They don't go beyond that, and they have a strict sense of costume and everything. One fact which is interesting with them, they used to roam in the city, in the villages, and they sing, and that's how they got their own money. And because of this dying, this form is dying, now they are hired by government. They're getting some fund, like 1,200 rupees per year or per month. I don't remember exactly. So I hired them, and for this film, I had to compose the song. So with another artist friend from my college in Bhubaneswar, his name is Nandan Balabdas. He is good in Sanskrit literature and Odia literature. So we had a long conversation. Before that, we have a good friendship, I think. So we collaborated and kind of took excerpts from different books and all, Puranas, and composed these songs and asked these two singers to perform it. So of course, then it's a cinematic process, but it was more cinematic, like I asked them to act. So a lot of the time they are not acting, they are not singing there on the site. There are tape recorder which is playing the song, they're acting with it, and in the studio, they're performed. So we record that. And so with different, like with the engineer person, the electrical engineer, he did not do any performance or anything. He just did his official work. We chased him. So there are different way how I collaborated in this project.
We are out of time. Can you please put your questions in? If Paribartana is going to be around till later in the presentation, he can take something even after Zishaan's thing at the end of the panel. But I think if you don't mind keeping track of time, we don't want to be late and sort of delay Zishaan's presentation. Can I call upon Zishaan to sort of come on? Hi.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening, Zishaan. Again, a very short introduction. He's an independent photographer whose work is, I think, highly intuitive and personal, but at the same time, sort of a highly professional and passionate photographer who works on the field. He has recently he's recently been given the Chennai Photo Biennale Photography Prize. Two of them have been informed, and he's other than that, in 2021 he received the third prize in contemporary issues from the World Press Photo. He's also published extensively with a lot of sort of international and Indian publication, including Caribbean, New York Times, etc. With that very brief introduction, I'm actually going to sort of not to be accused of sort of giving very long introductions. I'm going to call upon Zishaan to, because we thought we'd sort of have this as a conversation with you, Zishaan. I was thinking if I could just lead with a question, because for me, it's very interesting. The project that we presented as the part of the journal 2 of the Chennai Photo Biennale journal was, it was called The Art of Hatred 2, the North East Delhi Riots. And actually this has a precursor, right? There is a sort of earlier part 1, Art of Hatred part 1, which got you working and really engaging with this sort of line of question. Can you tell us a bit more? I mean, you've called it Genesis, but can you tell us a little more about what Genesis
Thank
is?
you for having me. Thank you for having this body of work part of the journal at the Chennai Photo Biennale. Thank you for all the support. I think why Genesis? I think it's important to understand the route of where the country is trying to go. It's Genesis meaning the birth of the NRC in 1951 in Assam, right? So one thing it's really important to understand that India is actually a continent and Assam is actually a country. And it has its own, and like Odisha is a country. And so Assam has its own deep-rooted cultural, socio-political, geopolitical concerns and experiences that it lives with, especially because it has a border with then East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. I think it's important to understand it's preposterous to think that you can replicate that idea of one state's rootedness to its problems to an entire nation, right? So I think that's where we are, and how it's been conveniently hijacked by the incumbent government as one of their very pertinent, as they call it, need of the hour to take over a certain fervor across the country. And it's so deep, it's so complex. It's so it's contentious because it's such layered understanding. I mean, I have just started peeling off certain aspects of Assam. I've been going since 2015, and I started off as a photographer, very curious about displacement of people from an island. Majuli is very famous for its culture, for its Ahom civilization, for its Shatras on the island, for its religious affiliations. But I think for me, when I went in 2015, I went for an assignment to document the color of the island, and I was there for just 2 days, and I realized there's something doesn't meet. It doesn't, 2 and 2 doesn't come together in terms of, it doesn't meet the eye. There's something that is missing, a miss. And I went back in 2017 to spend a larger time on the island to comprehend what's happening on the edges of the island, and it is and how it's being eroded so quickly. So that's where Withering as a project, as an understanding of land and displacement of people started. Then subsequent chapters of that as well, 17, 18. So leading up to the monsoon period, which is a very, very intense part of Assam, because the Brahmaputra River is the giver. It's the giver. It's also the destroyer. So and it gets so fueled by wanton monsoons that I felt I should go back in 2019 to around the same time, but there was something larger looming around Assam, which was the NRC. And my curiosity towards understanding why people had to prove or had to go through a very grilling experience to prove their identity to land, again related to displacement of people from Majuli. So there was this thread that I was trying to put together in terms of identity to land. Then obviously it became larger in terms of a community that felt attacked, that felt put on the spot. But very important to understand, the NRC did not begin with the intent of communalism in 1951. It started with the idea of trying to protect India from influx, right? It was still murky waters in terms of the borders. It was shaky. It was messy because it was still East Pakistan. There was no clear definition of borders. So there was influx, easy influx. So, that, again, this overarching theme of identity and relationship to a piece of land. Again, coming back to Brahmaputra, being such an aggressive river, it eats up so much of land. So one of the major reasons why people cannot identify connection of one person to a village, to a piece of land, is because that piece of land is no more there. So it's so complex, Assam, in terms of its environment, its geopolitical borders, tribes, religions. It's really complex. But it's also beautiful. But it comes with its own flavor, which is you have to be able to navigate it in a way. So I've been fortunate that I had support on the ground from Majuli leading up to pitching the story of the NRC to Caravan in 2019, and them leading me on to people on the ground there, and then traveling deep into 4 districts in Assam, and just being overwhelmed by the idea of what if this was me? Because I can't now disassociate my name from what I'm also doing. Okay, my name was never a consideration when I started photography, but it has become something that has irked me to try and start recording our present era, which is becoming a very messy era where people are forced to prove allegiance or patriotism, and which I don't understand the need for. But especially where I come from, it's a mixed. My parents eloped and got married. My mom is Parsi, my dad is Muslim. They eloped and got married in 1979. Seher was born in 81. I was born in 84. We're cocktails, right? Seher and I are cocktails. So we were never, our idea of India was never restricted to you're this or you're that or they are that. It was never about that. And thank God for that, because I think we've lived most of our lives not differentiating. It's funny because one of the fondest memories my mother keeps repeating to me is, Z, do you remember in one exam, you didn't know what minority meant? So for me, for my parents and my mom especially, she felt, I don't care you've lost marks, but I'm so proud we haven't taught you what that means. So I think on a larger scheme of things, it was never ingrained that, this versus that. It was, we celebrated everything, we do everything that was part of a larger conscience, right? So 2002 is when I went to Bombay for my BCom. And I remember Sarah and me and Go the Riots had just 2002. And, in hindsight, rightfully so, my mother was trying to force Sarah and me to change our names on the train ticket that we were taking back from Bombay to Delhi, and we were crossing Gujarat. And so my mom was like, no, change your names. My sister was like, nothing doing. Eventually we didn't. We got home safe, but that stuck on in me. And I was not even a photographer. I was not even cued into the arts and how I could express through my medium and my craft. So when the riots broke out in Delhi in Feb 24th, 2020. A part of me actually went back to 2002, thinking of there was a part of me that took me back, that inquisitive, curious. It happened, and somehow we felt unsure of our identity even there. Then was the first time you felt a little question on you. And so that remained. Not like a persecution that we felt. We've never felt that. That happened much later when the CA was introduced, in terms of when you felt eyes actually on you. And, but I remember going with Ishan and Mustafa wading through mangled existences through the streets of Shiv Vihar in Feb 2020, just before the pandemic actually locked all of us up. And it was just so eerie to have. We can see the images if we want to.
Yes, I was just going to ask Priya if she can pull up the images from this thing. Just to sort of intervene as you were talking, because this is something that sort of came up even when we discussed the project before we published it, was this constant question of how, you know, at one time it's a documentary, at the same time you're so invested in these stories. There is a sort of line that between your personal life and, you know, your own identity being in that space. And that's something that you also talk about when in the context of Assam. What kind of grappling, you know, what does it mean to sort of grapple with that question? Do you want to distinguish the two? Does it sort of, how does it feed into each other and how you, you know, craft your narrative?
I think, as I said earlier, it was never a consideration when I began photographing about 16, 17 years ago. This really started glaring questions, or you felt like, I think there was now, I still want to believe that I want to be a photographer. I want to be an artist that can give an opportunity through the medium to tell stories. So am I being looked as a Muslim photographer versus a photographer? I think there's a gray area right now. But I personally feel that it is coming from a space where I'm, since 2014, then leading up to the establishment of the CAA in 19, there has been a shift. And there's been a conscious effort to use the craft to be able to speak. And that's where now there is this blurring of lines of me and them and me, because it is still, can't neglect that I do have a Muslim name, even if I don't necessarily follow the rituals or the religion at home, but I will always be associated with it from the outside. So even if I don't see myself as that. But I think just my first journey with Caravan in 2019 made it ample clear that there was this, on a human level, I mean, removing communal or community, I felt there was, on a human level, I felt I needed to tell these stories. So that was the photographer in me who needed to tell these stories. The psychological impact of having someone having to go through that phase of constant harassment, of having to prove, then it hits back home. Will I have to do this? If my so-called privilege still has to go to South Delhi centers and find my name in registers of my, like, I had to, with my mom in the middle of the lockdown, end 2020, mom and I went looking for Sair in my names and getting my name registered properly as getting my birth certificate in place. Because I had experienced this in Assam when, unfortunately, a certain section of society that is considered the illiterate section is the easiest target. So if they had to go through it, where they had to go from pillar to post trying to prove with their Aadhaar card, you know what, for me today, privilege means to have your correct spelling on your correct address. That is privilege today. You know, so for me if I have to get my correct spelling on all my identifications across the board in terms of PAN numbers, PAN cards, Aadhaar cards, my birth certificate, if I'm feeling it, imagine them. So true story. I actually am still trying to get my voter. I just got my name changed from Bombay address, and my name was all over the place. And going back to these stories from Assam, people have been excluded from the list because of one alphabet missing. So it became so crucial for me when I came back. I told my parents, I need to get this in order. Right. So privilege actually today is getting your right spelling on your right address. That is privilege today.
Absolutely.
So
and this, I think that's one of the sort of things that you also sort of talk about when you went back to the North East Delhi to talk to the residents about, the kind of documents they lost and, what that loss meant now, right?
Yeah. So it took me, of course, pandemic and then things in between. Took me 21 months to go back. I just felt a certain burden. I felt I had parachuted myself into a situation out of curiosity, but I felt I needed to also experience. I had to really sense what man-made hatred was in the streets of Shivvihar. Like if I went in as a journalist, I don't know, because my work was very intuitive and instinctive, and I used my mobile phone. I felt like it was the most penetrative, personal, intimate way for me to actually feel something. And I just used something, but whatever came naturally to me, I used my mobile phone. So that I also felt that it was always going to be a distance between the space and me because it's not my space. But I used a medium which I felt could somehow penetrate deeper and could remove those veils, so to say. But sorry, I lost my chain of thought. Question.
Yeah. Particularly about the loss of documents, and a
Right.
lot of the images are actually about burnt books and documents in these homes. And
yeah, I mean, the images are, of course, holy books from holy shrines from the streets of Shivvihar, which is again a direct attack on certain communities, but a community. But besides that, there was a family that Ishan, me, and Mustafa experienced coming. They came back a week later. I went for the first time a week on the 3rd of March 2020, a week after it had already so-called subsided, but the horrors of that place would linger on for a long time. So on the 3rd of March 2020, when we went, a family was trying to break through all the metal that was outside their house to just see because they had in the idea of saving themselves, in split second they had to leave to save their lives on the 24th, 25th of Feb. So they left behind very important, again, identification papers, right? So they came back a week later when things had so-called subsided to go inside to find. They were there, thankfully, but the lady of the house said our house papers were missing. So, again, any form of identification is you're linked to land.
Yeah.
And today, any form of connection to India is now I think that's become sacred. Right. So it took me 21 months later. It took me 21 months to go back. I went back, and it was really good to meet the family again. And very sweet of the family. And they told the son to go around with me because Aditya, friend of mine, and me, so I took prints of all the photographs of the spaces that I went to. And I was trying to literally map all the houses that I had photographed. So Aditya, also word of mouth, because there were such similar stories of houses that it felt like it was their kitchen that was burned. It was their drawing room that was burned. So there was a lot of like these stories that were happening in between. But what is beautiful, like a sense of community, it eventually came together in terms of one neighbor. Oh, actually, this is their kitchen. So one person led me to the other, and then stories. I was hoping to meet these people when I went in 2020, but didn't realize the gravity of them. Obviously, the trauma, and they took a while to come back. So, but thankfully they were there trying to rebuild their life. Lack of support from the authorities or zero. NGOs were giving more support to rebuild their lives and their houses. Just really sad stories of despair in terms of just feeling this betrayal. And so for me, I just felt the story shouldn't be forgotten. So that burden from 2020 was that I need to go back to put faces to these properties. So yeah.
Lovely. I think one of the things that we also wanted to do is sort of touch upon not just this project, but also a very sort of lovely and very touching project that you've been working on, particularly looking at women's health in the Nandurbar district.
Yeah.
And yes, and that was a project that I felt was also telling about, we are talking about technologies which are enabling us to do so much. And then to hear this story in today's day and age, can you tell us a little more about that project, about how you worked with the family? Where did it start?
I think you nailed it in terms of like the disparity between two Indias.
Yeah.
I think there are, of course, India is again a continent, but within India there is a major shift. There's a major divide where you have technology, where you don't have technology, where it is being used to decent extent well, but also today it's been misused and abused to a level where it is become lethal to the governance of this plural society. Okay, so this is Nandurbar really rural, very rural. And if it wasn't for Pari as an establishment that looks at rural India as a dignified space to tell dignified stories of dignified people, the lost India. So I think that goes to Pari for penetrating into that part of India that seems accessible, but also is not. So the Nandurbar is one of those, yes, People's Archive of Rural India. Jyoti wanted to do this story, and I've been wanting to work with Pari for a while. It was hand in glove in that moment in March. Again, both these things happened. What's ironic and is really strange that, again, talking about two Indias, I had traveled from Delhi to this very rural part of India in the same month, recognizing two very distinct stories, doing, but again, a collective conscious that we are breaking as a society, right? So one, lack of medical facility was in Nandurbar. The Delhi riots was clear social, political discord. Nandurbar, again, we had to trek like an hour and a half, 2 hours from, like, drive many hours to get to these hamlets in Henglapani, in the Satpura hills of West Maharashtra, and it's really barren, and it's really like bare necessities with which people go on their life with. And so Pallavi's story, Sarika's story are two of the stories that we worked deeply with. We didn't get much time, but I think it was important to touch upon the lack of basic medical facility around them, and just the distance to cover for basics like sanitized pads or sanitized equipment, even for an ASHA worker to be able to help these people in these distant hamlets. One ASHA looks at almost 10 hamlets. I mean, when we were there, they were like, even we find it difficult to, penetrate if we don't have that support. And for me, it was to have a male gaze on a very, very sensitive woman medical issue. I had to be careful, of course, but and Pari is very, very particular about not showing faces. So I had to be extra careful about how I want to portray these the protagonists of the story. Will I ever be able to experience their pain? It's foolhardy to think that I can translate that through my work.
But I think it's sort of, it resonates with probably other women or probably other people who are, who are aware of that kind of sort of discrepancies in our sort of lifestyles. And I think that's something that really stayed with me, was the fact that, we've been through this idea of what women's healthcare means and what it means to not have good healthcare in India. And that story it took it to the extreme, of course. And it was, it's sort of, it's very sad, but at the same time, it's the story that needs to be told. And I think that's what sort of both Pari and your sort of intervention also sort of allowed you to sort of say it in a way that wasn't merely about breaking a story, but about giving it a human touch to actually think about them as people and sort of humanize what it means to live with these realities. And I have a little comment on the side from Helmut that said, Pari was one of my essential revelations about India during my time there from 2014 to 2020, and an admirable and wonderful project for very courageous journalists. So thank you, Helmut, for that.
Just for everybody to know, Helmut is one of the first imaginators and co-founders of the Chennai Photo Biennale. Hi, Helmut. So glad you could join us. Bhooma, and Zishaan, sorry, but we would have loved to, carry on with this conversation. But I think we will need to probably take a little bit of a pause here and invite Kerstin, and we have Ahmed with us over here. But thank you, Zishaan.
Thank you, Zishaan.
And as well for your wonderful work and really for being out there. So I think there are many students who have joined in today, and I hope really that the work is inspiring for them. But now I move on to welcome other co-curator, Kerstin Meincke. Hi, Kerstin. Thank you for making the time and joining today. Kerstin also teaches at the University of Duisburg-Essen, and she has been working with all of us from Germany, and she's also been involved with Bhooma on another project, which is a collaboration between universities from Germany and Chennai. We also very glad to have with us Ahmed Rasel. Hi, Ahmed. Thank you so much for making the time today. I take this conversation forward. Kerstin, over to you.
Sorry, my connection was interrupted in a way. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Or is it
we
my...
can.
Thank you very much. I think we are still waiting for Niklas, aren't we?
I think Nicholas will be joining a bit later. He's in the middle of another presentation, so he said he'll join after you are done. Yeah.
Okay.
So we can begin. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you also, Bhooma, for moderating the first panel of the journal presentation we have today. I'm very glad we can host this event today because the two journals that were published during CPB were really like a main publication project of CPB III, and I'm very glad to be able to talk in greater detail with Ahmed Rasel today. It's 2 p.m. in Germany, and it's already evening in India. So I would like to welcome everybody. Good evening over there. Hi in Germany. Good afternoon. I'm very glad to be able to talk to two contributors of our journals today, Ahmed and Nicholas, who will join, as Priya or Shruti have mentioned, a bit later, who are both presented in the first and the second issue of the journal. And we start with Ahmed, I would say, because we are still waiting for Niklas, who has developed a very interesting project on brick fields that is presented in issue 2 of our journals. And both of them actually, what I find really interesting also about this combination of the two guests today is that both of them are really interested in not only in photography, but also in, of course, storytelling, but also from two literary or poetic backgrounds. Niklas is dealing for the first time in his journal contribution also with poetics and texts that were written by himself. And Ahmed has really like a professional background in literature. He completed a master degree in literature in Bangladesh before he came to work with photography. And I think this is also a very important point to mention, because this already tells a lot about your focus on your conception of your surrounding and your focus on photography as a tool to tell stories, but also fictional stories, of course. I saw in some interviews that you were always referred as being a documentary photographer, and I think we could maybe discuss that later as well, what that means, because I'm not really convinced that your work is so documentary. But yeah, I think I'm sure we'll have the chance to think about that later. I would like to hand over to you, Ahmed, to maybe talk a bit about the background of your work before we'll all be able to ask questions. And I don't know if you, Shruti or Priya, would like to share the journal also to get a visual idea also about what we are talking about. I think this would make a lot of sense.
Sure. Yes.
Thank
Priya,
you so
would you
much.
be sharing?
Yeah, I'll just put the screen up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This would be very nice, I think. Yeah, let me just mention some points about Ahmed and about his background. I already told you that he completed his master degree in Bengali literature before he came to photography. And he had the dream of becoming a poet. That's what you said. And I think this is really interesting, also related to your work as a photographer. And then you started to study photography and earned a diploma in photography from Counter Photo, a Center for Visual Arts in Dhaka. You're also working as an adjunct faculty member of the same institute. So you're also teaching photography. Your work is often deals with contemporary social-political issues intertwined with personal experiences, memory, collective memory, space, politics, psychological state, environment, water bodies, and are some of the crucial motifs of your work. Your work has been published in many local and international platforms, and in several festivals and biennales. What's the plural? You were one of the finalists of the Sandami Art Award in 2018 and one of the participants of the Young Subcontinent Project of Serendipity Arts Festival in 2017. And yeah, we are very happy you accepted our invitation to also present your work in our journal. And over to you, Ahmed. Thank you so much.
Hi. Thank you, Kerstin. How do you pronounce your name? Sorry. It's Christine or Kerstin?
It's Kerstin, and you, I'm not sure. Ahmed would be the correct pronunciation here in Germany for somebody who is called Ahmed. But how would I pronounce your name better?
No, it's okay. Ahmed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm really happy and honored that I'm here today. And also I'm seeing so many faces like Tia and Shuti, Bhooma. So I'm working or talking or connecting by email for a couple of weeks now, but I'm seeing for the first time directly. And actually, I would like to congratulate all of the team members of CPB III, because we all are getting through very hard times. So it's organizing a festival during the pandemic is a lot of work, and it's a very tough thing, I would say. Okay, where I should start? Okay, the work Nocturne I have shared with the journal platform. It's now it's been last 6 years I'm working on the project. I started it all of a sudden in 2015 without any intention or without any plan. So it's I would like to share a story, my childhood memories. When I was a child, there is a brick field near my village home. It's village home. So it was something like that. Is a fascinating thing to have a brick field nearby your home, because me and my friends was used to play there. But long after that, that memory was inside me for a long time. But in 2015, when I started diploma course at Counter Photo, we had a trip at Satkhira, it's a southern western district of Bangladesh, also nearby Sundarban and the India-Bangladesh border. So at night, I was like hanging out with my friends and my classmates. So the place where we used to stay for our research project, So there was a brick field nearby. So at night, for my curiosity, I went there to see. And when I went there, something actually happened inside me, because Brickfield was something fascinating memories for me. But when I went in the Brickfield after a long time, so it was heartbreaking for me, because I grown up already. So I had a sense something like that is not that fascinating, because the field was full of wood and rotten tire and also coal. So I just took my camera and photographed maybe 30 or 50 clicks I had there. Then I back Dhaka, and I start a little bit research what is happening in the brick field of Bangladesh and what is. So when I start research, so it's like a completely different thing if I compare with my childhood memories. So I read some article or news link. So and so many things actually pop up to me, and it was hard. Again, it was heartbreaking for me, because we know the brick field condition of Bangladesh. If you have it's because of the brick field, the deforestation and the brick field for brick making. Most of the chimneys used topsoil of agricultural land. So then in 2017, I started the project, because I was busy with my diploma courses and other class project. Then I start, before the pandemic, I have visited so many fields nearby in Dhaka. Also, I have visited in a hill tracks region of Bangladesh to have a different perspective, because there is a difference in the chimneys or brick field of Dhaka or nearby Dhaka and the hilly region, because the brick field of Dhaka mostly use coal as a burning material or primary burning material. They also burn old rotten tire, and sometimes they use wood. But most of the brick field in the hilly region, their main burning material is wood. So it's a little bit different, but there is a little bit different also in Bangladesh. According to Bangladeshi law, there is no permission to set up a brick field in the hilly region. But when I visited there is many brick fields is in operation. So yeah, that is a kind of a background story of my project. And also this is an ongoing project. I would like to have a different perspective to continue the project. I would like to do a portrait series of the workers, because the visuals I am presenting here is kind of missing the perspective of the workers here. Also, because of I'm using a particular technique to portray this story. So in some point, I think maybe if I would add some visuals like Google Map studies or videos, maybe that will help the more people to connect with the project.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ahmed, for this background information about your project. I think it's very important to know that the brickfield industry is an increasing actually industry in Bangladesh due to the recent processes of urbanization, and that there does not seem to be an end so far. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so, because as Bangladesh is having a rapid urbanization, if you compare with other countries from South Asia. So it's Bangladesh actually, Bangladesh need annually more than 22 billion bricks in a year. So it's a huge pressure, huge pressure. And so the more and more brickfield is coming up, and the people got interested to invest in brickfield sector because it's is a good business currently. Also, there is a cultural shift even in the village area where people used to use for house making for 100 years is natural materials, but now it's a kind of a concretization culture. Most of the people prefer to build their house or any house or any commercial project. They are building now with concrete and bricks. So it's thriving every year.
What first comes to one's mind looking at your photographs is that they were all taken by night. You are working with long exposures to make something visible that could not be, that is normally not visible for the eye. Maybe you could elaborate a bit more on the reasons why you're only working at night. What is so different? What is it more like a narrative strategy?
Yeah, when I took decision to photograph at night, there is a couple of things in my mind. One is technical things, that most of the cases the brickfield owners or managers do not agree to give access to the photographers because there are many journalists who publish report on brickfield, but as a documentary photographer, I used to follow issue for a long time. So when a manager or owner notice someone is coming frequently, they got nervous. They start arguing, why are you here day by day, what we would like to do, and so many things. So I decided to photograph at night, because at the night time the brickfield become a little bit quieter. Most of the worker, there is a work division, so most of the workers do not work at night. So it's easy to talk with the worker or interview the people. And another thing is there is a couple of artistic decision I have made. One is it's like I'm not telling any story which is not visible to people. People know about the brickfield, and there are many reports online. So I thought the long exposure will give me some different kind of thing, like it's happening a destructive thing is happening around us, around the city, where everyone is know about it, but they are not having any attention or to it. So I thought maybe if I made some visuals which is or vocabulary which is not used before for this particular issue, maybe it will help me to gather attention of people or the authority. So that, and also I think if as a photographer, if I see anything or any see a thing for 1 minute or sometimes more than that, or 30 seconds, generally we made photographs in nanosecond or nanosecond. But when someone is using long exposure thing, it's a help to see the things that is generally we don't see, or we don't pay attention.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, I think in some way, because there are many journalists before photography in the field, many local and international journalists, but they just took 1 or 2 photographs to tell a greater story about Bangladesh. So they did not follow the issue for a long time. So I thought I should encounter the issue for a long time. And if you consider the visuals from Bangladesh, we have many important issue, and many international journalists came and photographed the issue and went back. But so there is a set of visuals from Bangladesh, and so I wanted to break it. Visual sensitivity, new kind of visual sensitivity to grab the attention of the people.
I think this is very important that you mention that, the longitude or the long duration of your work, and how it is linked, how this work is linked to the aspect of the archive, because that's what I see in your work, that you're working over the course of several years, and you're really creating an archive, which is also related, of course, to ideas of mapping, as you're traveling, and you're really mapping in industry, actually, that is rapidly changing at the moment also. So how do you think this aspects of archive activism and mapping can be maybe visualized, or can gain a new form, artistic form, maybe in the future? Now that you're adding a new chapter, in a way, you plan to portray also the workers. Could that also be another aspect of this map?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah. Actually, I did not. I did not decide yet what will be the visual style of the portraits, because I never. I planned something for when I start photographing or portraying any issue. I plan and research, but never think about the visual or visual style. What I will do, I will visit the field again and again, and I will talk with the workers, what they are thinking about their job and about their issue. I think they have, they will say maybe their thought will not meet my expectation, because this is their job, their occupation, though they are not getting a good salary, or their working condition is not in that sense is not safe enough. But I would like to hear their perspective first, then I will decide what will be the visual or style. Yeah, but I think it's important to portray issue or cover issue from different perspectives. So that's why I'm planning to follow the workers. Maybe if the workers will, they are mostly the internally migrated worker. They came in the, especially the brick field of which is nearby Dhaka or in greater Dhaka areas. They are internally migrated people. They are not local one. So I think I will get a different kind of perspective, or why I would also like to know why they are here. And and I have a different project which is on climate change or the issues like people of urbanization of Dhaka, despite urbanization of Dhaka and the water bodies of Dhaka city. And also my another project is about the people, about the Dhaka, what people do in the evening, and then several culture issue. Actually, the all of the project is in some point they are connected, because when people face issues like climate change or any natural disaster, people who especially the coastal people, they had to move Dhaka for get work. So most of the workers who are working in the brick field, they are displaced people, and they don't have option to earning the living in their local setup. So there is interlink with my all projects. Also, they are the people who are living in the slum of Dhaka city, and every day, like more than 1,000 people are coming to Dhaka for work or making the living. So that's why Dhaka is yeah, that is actually yes. Okay.
Were those flows also interrupted during the pandemic, or
yeah, most
like
of the
flows of migrant workers?
Yeah. During the pandemic, it was actually hard time for the migrant workers, because most of the factories or working setup was closed because of the lockdown and all. And many of the workers or the people who has low income people lost their job. So it's now it's becoming another story to follow.
You were mentioning
Kerstin, just to interrupt, very sorry. We are kind of a little tight on time.
I know.
Yes, just to keep everybody informed on time, Nicholas is also here with us.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Nicholas. I will welcome you officially in several minutes, but I would like to ask another question to Ahmed regarding the gap in your archive that was caused by the lockdown in a way, because these 2 years, over the course of 2 years, you were not able to travel as you wanted to continue to work on your project. And yeah, maybe you can reflect a bit on this gap and on the role or the meaning of this gap in your archive at the moment, or how you understand it. And then I would like to hand over to Nicholas and to his strategies, his artistic strategies during the pandemic.
Well, yeah, there is a gap. Actually, when we say I'm doing a long-term project, it's very common to have a gap intentionally or unintentionally, but the gap of last 2 years gap is a different kind of thing. We have experienced a pandemic, so it's a if I consider it my project wise, it's a great loss for me, because I'm missing so many links in last 2 years. So I think it's a little bit I have to cope up with the story again, because last 2 years I'm not following properly what is happening in the field, and the people I know and that I work with in last many years. Maybe I have communicated with them phone, but I don't know what they are working really. So it's a bad thing for a project, ongoing project. But yeah, I have to deal with it. That's the part of the job, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, this is actually something when Nicholas and I were briefly talking about when we prepared for this event, like this perception of an interruption, and yeah, how everybody needed to find new rituals, new ways to cope with the situation during the lockdown, and in particular for artists who were frequently traveling or yeah, were working on long time projects. It was, of course, a new situation they needed to face, and so they were some of them, or a lot of them, that's what I learned from several conversations, yeah, we're really inventing new strategies, rituals, like for example also Sora Pura did with this rooftop series that is also featured in the journal, which I would like you to also have a look at. Maybe you can also share the link to his work, Shuchi or Priya. And so did also Nicholas Polly during the first lockdown, in particular when he started to develop works in his apartment that he was not able to leave in the way he used to, or to work the way he used to work before. And I'm very happy you're also here today, Nicholas. I know you are in the middle of another work, so we are a bit limited today, but even though I'm very happy you accepted our invitation to reflect a bit further on the work that is featured in our second journal, which is entitled, it already has a poetic title, When Strawberries Grow on Trees, I Will Kiss You, which is a work that you developed during the pandemic, as I already mentioned, and yeah, which will be the topic of today's discussion. Let me only mention a few things about your background, give the audience some background information about our guest, Nicholas, who is a photographer, a graphic designer, and editor, who is based in Switzerland. Where are you based, Nicholas? Maybe you can.
Hello, Kerstin.
Let us know the city.
I'm based in a city that is called Biel, that is in the center a little bit of Switzerland.
Sorry, I haven't asked you yesterday. So I find very interesting how you're intertwining the different fields of occupation, photography, design, and also bookmaking, which you're also teaching in where are you teaching? In Switzerland, actually.
Yeah, I'm teaching in a school that is called ECAL, that is the School for Visual Art of Lausanne.
Thank you, thank you. And you're also the founder of a publishing house, which is called Ciao Press.
Exactly.
Besides making your own photo books.
Totally.
I already mentioned in the beginning of this talk that we have two guests who are really interested in not only in photography but in several modes of telling, of narration, let's say, who have a strong background or strong connection to literature and poetics, because also Ahmed is trained, gained a master degree in literature, actually. And so, and Nicholas, who is interested in making books and publishing books, and also now for the first time during the pandemic, you are inventing a project that deals not only with photography, but also with written poetics. And I would be happy, and I think for the audience, it would be very nice to have a look at your work before we will all be able to ask questions and to reflect a bit further about it.
Yes. Do you want to share?
Yeah, maybe you want to share, or Priya can share the...
What would you prefer, Nicola? Do you want to share?
I don't. I think I thought that Kerstin, you were going to show.
Okay, so we'll just share it at our end. Yeah, we'll just share it at our end.
Perfect. But I will profit already of this time to thank you all for having me here. It's an honor, and I'm really sorry that for this timing kind of things. Yeah, as you said, I'm currently with a client, so also sorry if there is some background noise. This project is definitely something different for me. I worked on this project, as you well said, during the first lockdown. So an historical moment for a country like Switzerland, where something was definitely different than the habits we have. The idea and the perception of being closed, locked in a certain place is something that for a free country like Switzerland is not our habits, and this of course generated or created a lot of disruption in the system of the people, and also in mine. I'm someone that also for the several things you examined before, as you said before, I'm quite productive as a person. I work a lot. I'm a little bit of a workaholic, and work and doing things have always been for me a sort of escape through my life. And I used all the time working as a sort of productive way to don't think about me and myself and my emotion. What happened during the lockdown is that as a lot of creative people around the globe, I lost quite all my jobs. And this obviously not only gave me a little bit of stress because of that, but mostly it gave me a lot of free time that I never had before. We can imagine that this free time is actually a beautiful thing, but in my case, this free time gave me a sense of meaningless. I was feeling meaningless in a certain way, and at the same time, I realized that outside of my job and my work and how the people know me for my work, I was actually not at all an interesting person. I felt that I was a little bit nothing without my work, and I felt also that I was really hiding myself behind my work, and through myself I was escaping actually from emotion. I was escaping from reality and from life since too much time. This provoked immediately a sense of being lost, and together with that, I felt in a depression. I felt, of course, alone. I was alone, and all this for several weeks became my new reality. One day, in order to escape, or as a sort of escape way, in a certain way of escaping from this new reality, I tried to dig into by myself. One person started to write me and started to ask what I was actually doing in this moment during the lockdown. And as we human tend to lie all the time when we are in situation of not an happy moment, we try to hide and we try to say that we are always doing good. If we don't feel like we want to show our real emotion to someone. I was telling this person, no, I'm doing really good. I'm doing new photography. I'm doing new pictures. I'm super productive as always. That actually was an incredible lie, because I was just lying down on my bed and doing nothing, sincerely. And this person actually asked me, okay, I want to see this picture. Let me show what you're doing. And as I was doing nothing, I was feeling a little bit, okay, now I have to produce something for this person. So I started to do a picture, and I started to realize that doing this picture, even though was nothing, was not for the project, was just producing an image just for the sake of showing to this person, made me realize that actually through photography, I was able again to find a sort of aim or goal in my currently routine life. And from that moment, I realized that during a photographic project and trying to understand my actual situation and my true emotions through photography was my way, or was my reason to find a therapeutic escape from what I was dealing with at that moment. And this is how When Strawberry Will Grow on Trees, I Will Kiss You born. It was a way to understand what was my routine, understand what was my my surrounding, and understand, as you said, through something else than photography, so through words, what were my emotion, my feelings at that moment. And Kerstin, you said it properly. For me, it was not easy. I don't have a master's degree in literature, so I don't even have a bachelor degree in literature. I have nothing in literature, and for me, it was a little bit a new thing to realize that I was able, I was able to try to express myself through words, and I felt like putting together words and images, it was the best way possible to represent my current situation and to showcase it in a true and more realistic as possible way. So that's what a little bit When Strawberry Will Grow on Trees, I Will Kiss You is. A project that presents this moment of my life, a project that tried to represent my emotion, and a project that want to show the beauty in a certain way around this moment of solitude and research of contact with other human beings.
Thank you. Thank you so much for telling us about this very personal background of your work, because I think the situation that you were felt in a way being locked in one's apartment, and I think this was a situation that you needed to handle. Mm-hmm. And in particular in the first weeks when we were not, I don't know how it was in Switzerland, where you're not allowed to leave the house, or
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I can explain a little bit more about the process behind the work, in the sense that what you're seeing right now on the screen is not what I was doing before the lockdown. Like my previous projects were really different from this one. Also, I was already close to still life photography, but I was not so deep into it. And arriving to analyze in a certain way my surrounding and trying to work with what was possible to have. As you said, we were locked in, so there was not even possibility to really buy food. I mean, buying food was the only things that was possible to buy. So food in a certain way was the only only real friend that we had at that moment somehow, or if we speak about material elements. And my photography was a research of understanding a little bit what I was in this space. So you see a lot of, for example, construction elements that are built up, or elements that are sort of similitude for moments in our life, or for a representation of something else. And there is all this research that that comes also in a book. Actually the project became a book at the early stage of the project itself. And in this book, we can really see how the images are transforming during time, how also research of erotism somehow grow with my perception, my need, and but at the same time also a true sincerity through my emotion. So at one point we are looking for an exchange, for a physical exchange somehow, but then we understand that also we are looking for a more emotional exchange. And during the process of creating the poetry and creating the images, we see how my mind also changed, and my mind developed in a different research than what I started with.
Thank you. I think what is also very important, or at least for me it was the fact that your photographs are located anywhere between humor, of course, maybe also as a form, a process to cope with the situation, and tragedy in a way. So one is automatically thinking about the making of these photographs, or imagining you inventing these still lifes, which can you maybe tell us a bit more about this process of the making? Was it spontaneously, or then you had these ideas and then you tried to get some bread because you had this still life in mind, or was it something you had already in your apartment and then you decided to use things that were already around? Or
So most of the elements were already around, because as we can see, there is elements that they belong to our daily life, mostly vegetables, mostly food, as you said. The process of creating the images, it's for me, at least for this project, was really, really emotional and spontaneous, I will say. It's true that I'm a graphic designer. I'm someone that overthink about elements all the time. So I will be not saying the truth if I say that I was planning the picture as well. But most of the images, actually, they were coming as natural. They are answer to the poetry, or the poetry sometimes are answer to the images. So in a certain way, it's a sort of dance between the elements. Like one picture was bringing to another one. There was always a dialogue that was creating. And as I was building up the book together with the project itself, I realized quite immediately that putting them in a layout in the same time that I was producing them was creating the need to create new images and to try to analyze a certain part of my emotion, or to transfer in images what was my reflection, quite in a spontaneous way through the process of doing the book together with the project. That is something that I had already in my past. In my past, there is a project, it's called Ferox, the Forgotten Archives, that I did, and that is a lot more elaborate and a lot more reflected somehow. But even at that moment, the creation of the project was coming together with the creation of the publication. I have this problem or these beautiful things, I don't know how to describe it, that for me a project somehow most of the time is visualized immediately as a publication. I do a lot of things that for me the true representation of the project should be a book. And this was the case, for example, with this project. This project really came as a book. And so the way I was creating the images was really natural somehow.
Was it a daily practice or?
I mean, in a certain way, and this is probably the dark side of this project somehow, is that the creation of the project itself, it became a sort of need. I was almost like I was obsessed by this project. So as I didn't have anything somehow to do, the project itself, it became quite my daily routine. So I was dreaming about what I was living. I was analyzing my emotion all the time. And this was actually a beautiful thing because I became a better person, I hope, after this project. It really helped me to understand myself. And so I was trying to understand myself all the time, something that I was doing, I never did in my life, actually. At this point, it went from 0 to 100. At that point, I took my life with me and I said, okay, I found a way to try to navigate into me. Let's ride it. Let's go. I don't want to just have a part-time life understanding myself. I want to understand myself full time. And so I was not like, I shoot one picture a day and I'm happy. It was, I have to shoot 70 images in a day. And if it's the good day to do it, great. If it's not the good day, probably it's better to think. And maybe what I'm doing is not good, but that's it. And the picture you see maybe are some of the images. I redid the process 5 times maybe. So the same picture I did once, I was not happy. I did a second one, I was happy. Then I did the layout and then suddenly I was not happy anymore. And so I recreated it again and again and again. And this is how a little bit my life was at that moment.
Thank you so much. This is really a very personal work.
Indeed.
Yeah, a very emotional work also. Can we frame it like that as well?
It has been, and it's also quite important work for me because I wanted to analyze a little bit how, as heterosexual men, it's so important today also to express our emotion, something that we don't do enough, and this provokes also the certain problems that we believe or we see in our society actually. And so this project was, it became obviously a project that was really personal, as you said, and so also I quite provocative and quite difficult somehow to make it public, as there is some images of me naked, there is some emotion that are making me quite feeble in a certain way. There is many stuff that I was a little bit like, should I really come out with a project like this? And when I decided actually to do it, to publish it, I had an incredibly beautiful response, but not only from the public in general, but mostly from my friends. And I had a really beautiful discussion with other men, friends of mine, that we never had this discussion about sexuality, about the importance of speaking, the importance of expressing our emotion. And it was really beautiful because I had conversation that I never had, and it would probably never been possible to have if it was not for this project that gave me the possibility to be seen as someone that you can speak with. And so that was probably the most important part of all this.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing this vulnerability with us as well.
No worries.
Yeah, I think it will be very interesting to look back at these projects from a future's perspective. Yeah, to reflect about the situation and the feelings we had while we were in the lockdown again. And yeah, maybe from, yeah, when it's also already historical. Yeah, I'm already very curious to think about how our reaction will be in some years when, yeah, we will be in another situation. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. We already shared in the chat a link to another project that I would like to recommend by Katja Stuke, Oliver Sieber and Andreas Langfeld, that is also published in the journal. Also about their very personal rituals invented during the pandemic. For example, that the work by Andreas Langfeld, who invented a ritual that he did a walk every night and through his environment, because he wanted to avoid to meet people, but he also wanted to document the change of his personal environment due to the restrictions that were implemented in the public due to the pandemic. Thank you all very much. I think there was another question in the chat, but it referred to Zishaan's project.
Perfect. Yeah. Then I'm sorry, then I will leave. I'm really sorry, but I have to go.
Don't worry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your beautiful work. Thank you.
Thank you, and hope to see you soon. And
stay in touch.
Good continuation. Ciao,
Thank
ciao.
you.
Bye. Bye. And there was another question in the chat before that I found very relevant also for Ahmed's project. That was the question that referred to the author's position, or during documentary, as a documentary photographer, or during documentary processes. And I think this would be very interesting also to reflect about that a bit more. But I'm afraid we don't have the time now, right?
I was just thinking maybe in case if Zishaan, if you're still there, in case you might want to answer that quickly. Otherwise, we can anyway forward the question to Zishaan, but unfortunately we don't know who's asked, so might not be able to connect. Maybe not.
Shuchi, why don't we just get their contact details and then
we
can sort of...
Yeah, I have requested for it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Bhooma and Kerstin. I think this was a very enriching conversation for all of us. I know that we have personally been acquainted with the works of all our contributors, but I think, and I'm really hopeful that whoever has joined in today has really explored various narratives and various perspectives on what, not just what the lockdowns and the pandemic was, but also look at how it has affected various stratas of society and all of us individually as well. So from a lot of political sort of implications to personal sort of juggling with the idea of nothingness is what I was looking at Nicholas's work, and how beautifully Paribartana kind of showed us how he has traversed through his work, and Ahmed's beautiful, really beautiful imagery that he has constructed. I mean, I think all of these projects are really important works. And I would definitely encourage our audience. We've been sharing all their links. Please do go check it out. The journal is on for much longer, so please feel free to check it out in your free time. But I'm very glad that we all were able to connect today. So thank you very much, all of you, for making the time. And thank you, Ahmed, Zishaan, Paribartan. I have already said bye to Nicola. And thank you, Bhooma and Kerstin.
Thank you.
Ahmed, we will keep in touch because now I have several questions that arose.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll talk.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so much for accepting the invitation again. And thank you, Shuchi and Priya, for the organization and the invites. And yeah.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank you, everyone.
Reminder, do check the journal. Other than the photo essays, there's some excellent texts that have been contributed to actually thinking about what it means to make images today. And sort of the history of looking at images. And I think there's some of the most powerful writing that we've managed to sort of, invite to the Biennale. So yeah, please do check out the other pieces as well.
There are essays and there are podcasts as well. So please do check them out and stay connected with all of us. We'd love to be connected even post the Biennale period. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.